The state of Oregon is passing a rent control increase of nearly 15%. And I'm going to tell you exactly why. That isn't even near enough. And rapper Cardi B knows more about housing policy than most politicians. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have a couple of interesting articles for you today. And, we're going over my favorite topic, and that's rent control, okay? And people there right now, there's all of this affordable housing, worry going on across the entire country. I mean, even here, the housing costs have accelerated quite a bit, but that has to do with inflation overall. And, the funny thing is, though, they think that landlords somehow are not affected by this inflation while the tenants are. No, we're all affected equally. And when we're raising our rents, we're increasing our prices, that is a reflection of the fact that we're paying more for, basically everything, okay? More for utilities, insurance, taxes, you name it, we're paying more for it. So we have to raise our rents to be able to keep up with inflation. Unfortunately, that means that the tenant is going to have to pay more for rent as well. Now, do we deserve to be able to make a profit on top of that? Yes. And telling us that we don't is living in fantasy land. Okay, what is the incentive for a landlord to offer a property and then not make any money on it? Okay, there's none. Okay? That is why it is ridiculous whenever I hear these arguments that say, oh, these greedy landlords are raising rent because they want to make money. Of course we want to make money. That's why we bought real estate in the first place. But, the second article I have is actually going over a commentary from a famous rapper named Cardi B. Now, for those who watch my channel who have no clue who this rapper is, she's a very, very famous, one of the most famous rappers out right now, okay? And I know the people who watch my channel tend to be a tad bit older, in their 40s and 50s and above. So just keep that in mind when you're reading this. And, she actually has some pretty good insight on why housing costs are getting more expensive. So before I get into the articles, go ahead, hit the like, subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think, okay? What do you think is the true cause of the increasing housing costs, okay? And I can only say so often that, hey, the reason that housing costs are so high is because we don't have enough housing. We need more housing, okay? When there is a limited supply, people are willing to pay more for it, and that causes price inflation. Pretty simple, right? But for some reason, they think, oh, we can put these artificial government controls over the cost of rental housing, and that will, keep the cost down. Well, maybe for the person who's living there right now, but that's not going to help the person who needs to move and find a new place to live, because they're not going to be able to find anything. Anyway, let's get into the first article. And it's actually coming out of opb.org, and it says, rent hikes capped at 14.6% for most Oregonians next year, the highest since limits passed. And the state of Oregon actually passed it's a form of rent control that they passed over the entire state. So the state dictates how much landlords can raise their rent from year to year. So let's get into the article. In a state with one of the most challenging housing crunches in the country, Oregon renters could face the highest possible maximum increase since the legislature enacted limits on rent hikes 3 years ago. Starting January 1st, 2023, landlords in Oregon may legally increase rents up to 14.6%. This year, the cap is 9.9%, marking a 4.7% jump from 1 year to the next. According to apartment rental company Zumper, the average rent as of Tuesday for a one-bedroom residence in Portland is $1,500 per month. In 2023, the same unit could climb up to $1,719 a monthly, costing its renters $2,628 more for the year if their landlord decides to institute the 14.6% maximum increase. And in my opinion, the landlords pretty much have to implement that increase, because they will lose out on implementing that increase in the future if for some reason the state of Oregon says next year, well, you can increase your rent zero. Okay, then they are screwed. So they put the landlords into this situation with the rent control policy. Okay, now I don't think it's enough personally. I don't think 14.6% is enough. I believe that the landlord should be able to raise the rents to whatever the market dictates. If the people can't pay it, then the landlords can't charge it. It's pretty simple. Okay, if the landlord decides, oh, I'm gonna double the rent and put my rent that was $1,500 up to $3,000, and then nobody can afford it, well, they're gonna have an empty unit. So if the issue is that there are plenty of people who can afford that higher rent, then that's not the problem. Okay, the landlord charging or having an increase that is above what they think that the landlord should be able to charge is not the problem. The problem is that they aren't allowing enough building within the state of Oregon. Okay, and now I read years ago, and I'm talking like 20 years ago, that Oregon has something called like an urban growth boundary around the city of Portland. So they only allow so much land to actually be built on, right? And this greatly restricts the area from growing the way that it needs to grow. That means that developers have to pay a lot extra money so they can fight over the small parcels of land which the city is actually allowing them to build on. They're like, well, we want urban infill. The problem with urban infill is that it increases the price of that land, okay? It makes building costs more expensive, and it means that housing is less affordable. Okay, now I know Oregon is a beautiful state. Okay, it has beautiful forests, and they don't want it to be destroyed. Unfortunately, what they are causing is their own problem when they say, hey, we're going to put these artificial price controls in place, we're going to put this urban growth boundary in place, and now you've got landlords, us, caught up in this mess. So a landlord who was kind to their tenants and held their rents low for a long period of time, now they're facing all of the effects of inflation, right? And so that 15%, nearly 15% increase that they're going to allow that landlord to have isn't enough for the landlord to actually be able to catch up and be able to pay their bills. That's why I said earlier that 14.6% isn't enough, and that the market should be what dictates what the rents the landlords charge is. Okay, so just say, for example, if they say the average rent in Portland is $1,500 a month for a one bedroom, imagine there's a landlord there who hasn't raised rent on a tenant in 10 plus years, and they're charging that tenant $500 a month. Well, even if they did 100% increase and rose them to $1,000 a month, they would still be $500 less than the average rent for an apartment in the city. So you see what the problem is when the state implements and tells what the landlords can increase their rents at? See, that's why I completely disagree with it. And this whole rent control thing, it's annoying, and it just pisses me off. But I'm going to get into my second article, and it has to do with the rapper Cardi B. Now, she had some interesting stuff to say about, the whole housing issue and why housing is less affordable right now. So this article is coming from Reason.com, and it says, Cardi B delivers perceptive, profanity-laced analysis of high home prices and rents. Now, she does some cussing, and when I'm quoting, I'm not going to say the cuss words. I don't like to cuss, okay? So you can read the article yourself if you're curious what I'm trying to say. But anyway, let's get into it. Grasping a truth that's evaded many a Berkeley housing activist and even the administration of Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, rapper Cardi B laid the blame for high housing costs and rents on the lack of MFing inventory. The way the prices soar up, because I'm guessing there's no MFing inventory for the homes they're selling right now. No one is going to try to sell their effing home, said B in a profanity-laced, sneakily perceptive Instagram rant over the weekend. Yeah, well, in between the cussing, she's just basically right. Okay, there's no inventory. Inventory is the issue. That is why housing costs are so expensive. If they had more housing built, and going back to Portland, what I was just talking about, that urban growth boundary, the rent control policies, all of the government overreach that happens in a state like Oregon, all of the anti-landlord and anti-real estate developer policies, that is the reason why there is a lack of inventory there. The downward pressure that higher interest rates are putting on home prices will offer little relief to home buyers, the rapper argued, given the dearth of available homes. And now I'm back to quoting. Everyone is like, yo, when the interest rate is high, that's great because people have to sell their homes for less, said B. B, it doesn't matter if the interest rate is MFing high as F because there isn't even inventory. Okay. And see, this is an argument that I've been saying for quite a while, right? Housing prices will continue to increase. It doesn't matter if the interest rate goes up by these little small amounts, right? Housing prices will continue to be high. They are not going to lower or drop like they did back after the last recession because there's such a shortage of, houses for sale. So, after the last recession, they had more houses than people, there were more houses than were people. They built just huge, huge subdivisions and there were houses everywhere. And, this recession is a little bit different than that in that, hey, we have a housing shortage, yet we're going to have, these high interest rates. So the people are still going to need housing and they're going to have to pay a higher amount and face the fact that their interest rates are going to be higher on top of that. It's kind of an unfortunate thing, but it's the truth. And, she's spot on there, and I see that they have a video up here of it. And if I can, I'll put the video here at the end of my video. And so at least you can see a little clip from it.
I've been helping so many people for so many years. I never have helped out so many people for the past 7-8 months. And I remember something, right? Let me tell you something. A couple of months ago, I was helping a cousin get an apartment, right? And now I'm helping somebody else get an apartment. Bro, I was looking at some areas, the way that the prices soar up, the way that the prices soar up, because I'm guessing that even no motherfucking inventory when it comes to homes they're selling right now. Nobody's even trying to sell their fucking homes. So everybody's like, yo, when the interest rate is good, that is high, that's great because people have to fucking sell their home for less so you could buy a home for less. And it's like, bitch, it doesn't matter if the interest rate is motherfucking high as fuck. And actually, bitch, there's not even inventory. That's one, but that's another shit. Now let's talk about the fact that the fucking rent. I was talking about buying a house. Now I'm going back to rent. Like, how are people surviving?